Hey friends, what's up? Kaz here. Welcome back to another server admin tutorial or a Bucket Spigot plugin tutorial. If you're joining me for the first time, feel free to hit that subscribe button because I do these every week. If you have a suggestion of a plugin you'd like me to do, feel free to comment that in Jibbles below after you've done a quick Google search because I've done a lot of these and I'll give you a shout out when I get around to it. Like this is a premium plugin, so keep in mind that you will have to log into Spigot in order to view the page, and then you have to buy it. And don't ask me to give it to you because I don't like to steal things, and you shouldn't either. So anyway, shout out to Mahid Azad, Apollo HD, Legend Plays, Giggity Gerbert, which is a fantastic name, Zlomorda Gamer. So shout out to you guys, and I apologize for butchering maybe one or two of those. And like I said, this is a premium plugin made by Clip, which you might be familiar with him. He has made quite a few awesome plugins, one of my favorite authors, so shout out to him. He makes great plugins, has great documentation, and really good support. And he always includes messages.yml in all of his plugins, so you can modify them to really customize the plugin to be what you want. Now, the big thing about this plugin is it is AutoSell plugin. It lets you set up a sign so players can right-click on it and sell all of their items at once, which is great for OP Prism servers. I've done a sell all, I think is the name of the plugin I've done, and I think this one's better than that. It has a lot more features and functionality. You can do multipliers on shops. You can do multipliers based upon permissions. You can do global multipliers just by running commands, so you can link it up with voting or any kind of like drop party, anything like that. It is basically kind of like the Mojang EULA compliant setup in here. It also does direct items to inventory, which is really cool. I could show you that, I think, GMS. So when you mine it, it just goes right into your inventory. So when you got those high efficiency things, it just goes directly into your inventory, which is super cool. Built into this, it will auto convert anything to blocks, as you've been seeing, or an auto smelting feature. It also has an auto selling, so a player could just turn this on if they have the permission node, so maybe your donors would have it, and then it just sells the stuff to the shop as soon as they're mining. It links in with WorldGuard and Mine Reset Lite, so it's highly recommended that you use one of those two. If you don't use Mine Reset Lite, then you want to hook it in with WorldGuard so the plugin knows where the shops are and how to link them to the signs, which is really cool. It does depend on a permissions plugin. You need to have a permissions plugin. You need to have an economy plugin, and you need to have Vault, the latest version. This only works in 1.8, so make sure you're running that before you ask any questions. If you have any kind of like weird errors, check your console. Make sure you're all up to date before making any comments. Let's go over some of the commands. You have an AutoSell, and then the permission node for that is AutoSell.toggle. Basically, it turns AutoSelling on and off. You also can do a command sell all, which you can disable. If you don't give the players permission to that, then they can't run the command and they're forced to use the sign, which is really cool. You also have auto smelt, which is autosmelt.autosmelt. You can either do all to allow it for all of the materials, or you have to do the material name in there. You can also turn on auto blocks. It also has a plugin with VK Backpack with BP Toggle, which is really cool. And then Multiplier, and then your username will tell you what multiplier you have, and then your ASA is all of your AutoSell admin commands. Some of the other permissions to talk about is you have autosell.shop.shop name, so make sure your users have access to the shop that you set up. You have autosell.signs.sell, and then you have autosell.signs.c.shop. So the .c.shop lets them left click on the sign, and then they can see what's for sale, which I'll show you guys that in a moment here when we're setting it up. And then the sell lets them sell to the sign, any of the signs. So you need to do that, and then don't give them the autosell.sell all, and then they have to use the signs. And if you want them just to be able to sell to whatever shop they want, you could do autosell.shop.star, I think. Now let's get into how this is done. So we've already created our mine, and it's actually, we're going to use, well, we're not going to use WorldGuard. It's not plugged in, but the mine name is the same name of the region. So we're going to take a look at the region. So it's tutorial. There's no real issues with overlapping, if you have overlapping, make sure you set the region priority with region set priority tutorial to 1 or higher. It can go all the way up to 100. Be sure you do that so it has the top priority and that your users are able to mine in the here. So now that we got that, we're going to add the shop. So we're going to ASA add shop and then tutorial. Make sure this is the same name of your mine reset light mine or your world guard region, depending on if you're using MRL, then make sure you're using world guard and you've enabled that in the config, and make sure this is the same name. So it is the same name, so we're going to hit and there it is added, and then we're going to do ASA add item. And actually the way this works is whatever you're holding, it's going to add that item. So we're going to do ASA add item, and then we're holding it, we're going to add it to tutorial, and then the cost of it, and we're going to do $2, $1. And there we go. Now we're going to hover over this other one, which is only 10%. We're going to do add item tutorial, and we're going to make it $10. And there we go. We've added both of our items to the shop, and you can do ASA items tutorial, and it'll list all the stuff that you've added to that shop. So you can come over here then, and the sign can be whatever you want. It doesn't matter what the text is. You probably want to put some hints on how to use the sign on the sign. So left click will show all the items that you can sell, and right click will actually sell all the items. So we're going to do ASA add sign tutorial. So now based upon the sign we're looking at adds that sign, and we could left click now. We could see those 2 items that we've added to it. We could right click on it. It automatically sells all that. Now because we're op, you can see there we have a 2.5 multiplier, and I'll explain the multipliers in a second. So you can also stand in a region and do ASA what mine, and it's going to tell you what mine there is, or if you do what region, it's going to tell you what region you're standing in. But world guard is not enabled, so we'll talk about that in a second. Now some of the commands before we jump over the config is you can do ASA set multiplier, and then we could add just a player name, or we could do global, and then we could do 2, and then we're going to do 0. This is days, hours, and we're going to do 5 minutes. So now of 5 minutes has been set, so we can sell stuff to the shop. But I think that there we go. So now it's added 2 to our already 2.5 multiplier, which made our multiplier 4.5. You can also add to the current multiplier that's out there just by doing add multiplier rather than set, and then you can delete any multiplier out there by using del multiplier. Let's hop over to the config and show you guys some of the background of all of this. Okay, so here we are in the config. You can see we have our server. We're running 1.8.8, which is a little bit behind, but that's fine. We're going to do plugins, and then we're going to go into AutoSell right here, and we have a whole lot of options. The only ones that you can really configure or change is your config, messages, permission multipliers, and shop multipliers. This stuff is just saving anything on file like current multipliers or current shop signs. So don't modify anything in those. You'll see there's a big disclaimer at the top. So your messages, that's going to be any of the messages that the plugin has. You can change all of how it works. So if you want to change it to your language, that's pretty cool. And then the shop multipliers, we're going to talk about those in a moment. So let's hop over to the config and scroll through this. So here's where you can enable your hooks. Obviously, mine reset like I think comes enabled by default. I haven't changed any of this. So that is true. We want to enable this for true unless you're using something else and you'd rather just use that. It's fine. It's fine if they overlap, and it also has a hook with prison mines, which is really cool. Tools never break, true. So that's like, your tools will never run out of durability. Like I said, this is kind of made for an op or an OP prison. Multiplier limit is 100. Obviously, you can disable creative. For auto selling, you can require tools to be in there. You can disable this in certain worlds. You can enable or disable multipliers. Maybe you don't want any multipliers. You can do that. You can put on the interval announcements. So as you're selling stuff, especially if you're doing auto sell, it'll keep you up to date on how well you're doing there. Now you have your sign sell. It's going to show all of that stuff. Per shop permission, so you can actually disable that and the players can just sell to whatever shop, and then you don't even have to worry about that permission node. Sell all, you can enable or disable that, so maybe you don't want your users to use that command at all. Otherwise requires a permission there. Here's your item drops, your drop to inventory. That's pretty self-explanatory. It does work with Silk Touch, does do auto smelt. You can disable or enable that. There's your fortune. You can modify how that works on stuff. Here's your ingot to block, so you can disable that if you don't like the notice that it keeps showing on that and all that stuff, so that's not fun. Here's your shop info stuff, your backpack, money modifications, all that fun stuff, and now it actually shows your shop. So you can actually come in here and modify it. So if you have multiple shops in the same location, you can set the priority. The lower priority, the higher the priority is. So the lower priority number, the higher, it'll take precedence over other shops in that area and all that. So you can modify anything in there, which is really cool. So now the permissions multiplier, this you can give to your donors or anybody else. Now op by default is 2.5, and I think it's just built in. You can modify all of that there. You can set whatever permission node you want. The priority, once again, so if somebody has in multiple groups, it'll take the group that has the highest priority and it'll give them that multiplier. It won't actually stack those multipliers. And you can set this to be whatever you want. You can change this, and then it just checks your permissions folder and adds that multiplier. So 1.5 is like 50% boost. So 2.5 is like 250%, I think. Something like that. That's a big boost. So play around with this, and that's a pretty big boost. So shop multipliers, once again, this can apply only to specific shops. Maybe you want them to get a multiplier, but it only applies through, for some of the mines, like a donor mine or whatever it is. And then it's the same thing. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's hop back into the game and wrap this all up. So here we are back. We're actually on my prison server, and just to show you guys a little bit of how this works and all that, you can see that it's filling up our inventory all there, and we could just walk right over. You can kind of see the sign set up here of what you want to do. So if you do left click, it's going to show you how much each thing sells for, and then you could right click. You can see my multiplier is 1.6. You can see it puts that million in there, and it tells you how many items are sold, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much it for this plugin. I find this plugin super easy but very expansive. It encompasses a lot of stuff that is required for an OP prison, so I find it worth the money. I mean, I bought it for my server and it's fantastic. He didn't give it to me, and we've really enjoyed it on our prison server. So hopefully you guys found this helpful and enjoyable, and it gets you off and running with this awesome plugin. This is Cos from McFriends, reminding you guys all, enjoy the game. God bless. Sorry for another premium week, guys. I started doing this one and I forgot to make it a free week. So I try to do every other, but we'll have a run of free plugins. The next 4 top requests are all free plugins. So I'll make it up for you guys. Don't worry.